Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Thanks as always for being with us. And today we're going to talk about gambling. We're not going to give you any tips on how to win, but we're going to talk about the future of Twin River, which is not only a major employer in northern Rhode Island, but a major third largest source of revenue for the state of Rhode Island, now looking to add a hotel. And so to break down what's going on with Twin River and what's happening, I'm very pleased to be joined by the chairman of Twin River, technically Twin River Worldwide Holdings, I believe.
Correct.
John Taylor. John, thanks for being back.
Thanks for having me back.
So I have to start with, I'm actually going to start with the snow, because you told me a funny story off air that I think the viewers will get a kick out of. So you actually, during the big blizzard, about a little over a week now, to almost 2 weeks when this airs, you had to shut down Twin River, and you don't do that often. So what was that like?
It was the first time in many years that we had to shut down, and we don't have locks on our door. So
because it's 24 hours.
Because we're 24/7, and we actually had to go out and get chains to be able to lock the place up at the end of the day on that Monday, just to make sure that we were buttoned up.
Now, looking at the forecast, did you keep the chains in case it happens again?
We did keep the chains. We're optimistic that we won't get back there, that we won't be seeing any more blizzards, but we do have the chains.
How big a hit was it to make that decision?
It was actually a pretty big decision for us to make. Historically, we haven't closed since we turned 24/7 many years ago now, and it was the first time. But in an abundance of caution, we didn't want our employees out and about, and we didn't want our customers out and about, given what the forecast was for that night.
I don't want to spend much time on this, but is it partly a question of, even if you opened and paid people to get there and everything, if the customers didn't come, you might end up losing money anyway?
Yes, but historically we have stayed open, and it's interesting since we've gotten table games. We've seen an interesting trend kind of develop. Our slot players, with the threat of snow, typically stay away. Our table game players are more hardy and tend to come out. So and it probably because our slot players are a little bit older and our table game players are a little younger.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to get in the car in that kind of condition
Correct.
to get there. So well, it might get easier for them to stay with you during a snowstorm. A good transition for us, because you are looking now at seeking approval to build a hotel at Twin River. And if I was Tim Russert, I'd show you the clip from a year ago where I asked you whether you wanted to do a hotel, and I
saw your tweet.
Yes, I listened, see? And you mostly dismissed the idea. You certainly didn't rule it out entirely, but at the time you said you cited a consultant who told you you're a convenience casino and you're probably always going to be a convenience casino. Your thinking has changed. What changed in the past year?
Well, first of all, we're not backing away from who we think we are. So we continue to see ourselves as a convenience casino. But one thing that I did say at the time, and historically have said over and over again, was we're going to listen to our players, and our table game players have asked, and they want to play, and they want to dine, and they want to stay with us, and a significant enough number of them kind of made that request that it got us thinking. The other thing that changed was the fact that the competition is becoming much clearer to us in terms of where it's going to come from, who it is, and the combination of those things had us rethink the hotel issue. But again, we're not talking about a destination hotel tower with 25 stories. We're talking about a 200-room amenity hotel, think Courtyard Marriott, really just to be able to service those players who would like to stay with us.
And that, obviously, you're partly there trying to head off the concerns we saw. For example, Senate President Paiva Weed said immediately, we're obviously willing to listen to this idea from Twin River, but we're worried about the impact on the broader hospitality industry. That's part of why there's actually a state law right now blocking you from building a hotel to protect PPAC and other hotels, et cetera. So, what do you say to those concerns?
So, obviously, what we started was a dialogue. We started a dialogue with the town of Lincoln, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and we started a dialogue with the Hospitality Association, hospitality industry through their association, as well as the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I think the issue is, how are we going to use the hotel? And when we have the opportunity to kind of tell them how we're going to use it, I think they get much more comfortable. And a drive-in market like ours, typically 70% of those rooms are going to be for gamblers, and that's what we want. We're building a hotel so our players can stay there. We're not building a hotel so that people on 95 going from Boston to Providence can kind of pull off and stay with us. We much prefer to have the rooms utilized by gamblers. Secondly, I think the concern is, are you going to enhance your convention business? You've got an event center there, and the combination of rooms and event center, means that maybe you're going to get more aggressive at going after, particularly earlier in the week. And quite frankly, on a 365-day calendar, 80% of our dates are spoken for between entertainment events, banquets, trade shows that we host there, and the setup and tear down of those events. 80% of the dates are already spoken for. So if you take a 200-room hotel where 70% of the rooms are gonna probably be for gamblers, which leaves 60 or 70 rooms available, and 20% of the nights max available for convention business, I think they get it, that this is really about catering to our gambling customer.
Yeah, the flip side, and this hasn't been voiced as much, but is it possible the mistake you're making is going too small by trying, to listen to those concerns? But you're going to be competing with some very high-end resort casinos in Massachusetts before long, presumably. I mean, should you be considering something huge like a 40-story Foxwoods hotel or something?
It goes back to who we are and who we think we're going to be. Like I said earlier, we're not backing away from the fact that we're a convenience casino. People, for the most part, are going to drive and visit with us and then go home.
So what's the timeline on the hotel? You've announced it to the town council in Lincoln to start with, because I know you always say that relationship's important. What happens now?
So we started the dialogue with the town, as we always said that we would, but we've got to go to the legislature and have a conversation with the legislature about the merits of having a hotel at Twin River, and then we've got to go back to the town through the normal planning and zoning process. We're not trying to go around that by being in the legislature, so we'll go back to the town. So it's somewhat uncertain whether we get the legislation passed this year, and then when we can actually start the planning and zoning process and how that goes.
So you can't put a timetable right now on when you'd like to build and be open?
It's sooner than later would be better for us, but I don't want to handicap how long it's going to take us to kind of have both conversations in the town as well as at the state legislature.
If all the approvals go through, if you get everything you need from the town and the legislature and you have the green light, who actually builds the hotel? You're going to bring in someone like a Marriott or something, or will this be a Twin River owned and operated hotel?
So again, we're very early in this process, and we haven't made the decision of whether we'll own it and operate it ourselves, whether we'll joint venture, whether we're going to flag it or not flag it. So all of those things are to come, but first and foremost, the restriction needed to be lifted. And just another point on restrictions, there are other restrictions that we have related to convention business, related to the kinds of entertainment acts that we can have at Twin River, and we're not touching those.
You're not looking to take those back. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk much more with Twin River Chairman John Taylor about what's going on over there, the new hotel you're hearing about here, but also the oncoming competition from gambling in Massachusetts. So stick with us. You won't want to miss that. Coming up on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and we're talking today about Twin River with the chairman of Twin River Worldwide Holdings, John Taylor, the man who knows everything that's going on in their portfolio, which has expanded. We're going to talk about that later on in this show. But I want to go back to the facility itself, Twin River. Right now, paint a picture for us. How many slot machines, how many table games, and do you expect that number to rise or fall this year?
So 4,500 slot machines, 80 table games. I think in this year it probably won't rise or fall. What we've done is on our second floor, which is our non-smoking floor, we spent a considerable amount of time refreshing there. So we recently opened a new shipyard brew pub on the second floor, introduced weekend entertainment up there, just like we have on the main floor, refreshed slot product up there. And actually that floor plate is almost exactly the same size as what the competition is building in Plainridge. But in addition to that, we'll have the entertainment center, multiple restaurants, and dining opportunities and other amenities that they just won't have.
So steady as she goes on the amount of gambling options for people, and you're working on amenities?
Yes.
So would you ever consider, we always get this question, poker. Some people want you to open a poker room. Have you looked at it again, revisited that at all?
There are two things that we get requests for. One is poker and one is bingo.
You've said no bingo, pretty clearly, right?
Bingo is definitely one of those go big or go home kind of games, and the folks at Foxwoods, who we have a great deal of respect for, do a great job with their bingo product. So I don't think you'll see a day anytime soon where we'll consider bingo, although we do some promotional bingo and it works out quite well. On poker, our views are starting to change. So there could be a day at some point in the relatively near future where we could consider a moderate-sized poker room at the facility, which will make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, this show will go viral. Now, do you have to get new approvals from your regulators and everyone to do poker?
Absolutely.
If you decide to?
Yeah, we have a good working relationship with the Division of Lotteries, and this would be one of those conversations that when we were ready, we would have to have with them to see if they were comfortable.
So I want to talk obviously more about competition in Massachusetts, but just to get us into that conversation, what was 2014 like for Twin River? Was revenue up, down, flat? What did it look like before we have anything open in Mass?
So we actually did pretty well. I'll speak to you on a fiscal year basis because most people kind of look at it from the state's perspective. Sure. So fiscal year 15, which we are just about halfway through, our contributions to the state are up just under 2%. And had we not had the weather that we had in January, that number probably would have stayed there. So things are going well. The tables are acting or producing the way that we expected in terms of companion play. Even though the regional market continues to fall, the table games are bringing, the table players are bringing companions, which is helping prop up our slot number. And we've introduced the property to a whole new group of people who we had never really seen before. Some interesting facts as relates to competition. We've consistently outperformed two of the world's largest casinos in Connecticut at Mohegan and Foxwoods. Our market share, I think in 2006, 2007, is about 15% regional market share. Today it's close to 29%. And for the first time in 2015, our slot win in a month was higher than Foxwoods, which people never in a million years would have thought could have happened. So we can be competitive, and that actually happened twice, in September and in December. So we can compete, and we're doing well. We're hitting at the moment on kind of all cylinders. We've talked about this in the past, but we spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of focus training our people on how to deliver a great customer experience. Our internal numbers tracking that are at an all-time high, and I think a lot of the success that we've had in growing this business in a down and declining market is related to the experience that my colleagues in Lincoln are giving to the player. So
as a reporter, I'll instantly go negative on you from that positive spin, which is we have Plainridge, 1,250 slot machines roughly going to open this summer up in Plainville, Massachusetts, not far from you folks. How much of a revenue hit are you projecting off of Plainridge? You know, what are you expecting? I saw one of your followers earlier wondering what kind of impact there was going to be out of Plainridge. So we've way back when, before we were getting ready to go to talk to the voters about table games, we commissioned a study and said, what is the impact going to be? And at that point, the slot license to be determined where it was going to be was projected to be about a 10% impact on our revenue. We went back when we knew what was going to be, that it was going to be at Plainville, that it was going to be Penn, who's a great operator. And our advisors kind of adjusted that number slightly to about 12%. So we're projecting 12. We think over what time period? In the first year, but it'd probably be a spike. I mean, people want to try. You know, they're going to want to go try, and you know, we're confident. I'm confident that when they get there, they're going to say, "This is nice," but you know, I feel comfortable
I feel comfortable with the people that I know at Twin River, where we try to establish as close a relationship with our players as we can.
So is that really is it going to be, kind of, guerrilla warfare against each other? Maybe that's the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean? Just Plain Ridge versus Twin River, and you just angling against each other until there's a casino potentially in southeastern Mass?
Look, sometimes competition's good, and it forces you to kind of raise the level of your game, and I'm hopeful that this competition against a very credible competitor is going to have our team kind of raise the bar even higher than it already is. But it's going to be competitive. I think the casinos that are coming in Springfield and Boston add a different dynamic and maybe not as impactful. Clearly, a casino in Taunton would be impactful, and this potential fourth license has not been. We have not considered what the impact of that fourth license ultimately would be.
And I'll stop you there because we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more about that fourth license, as well as some of the other things going on in Twin River's Mississippi holdings, which is an interesting topic of conversation. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and today I'm asking Twin River Chairman John Taylor to put all his chips on the table in a hard-nosed interview, right?
Yes.
You must get those jokes too often. So we were talking about Massachusetts before the break, and I want to hit that a little more and then move on to some other topics. But you mentioned that other license. This is the southeastern Massachusetts. Will there be a casino in New Bedford or Taunton or Fall River? Meanwhile, there's a tribal issue out there in Taunton. It's a big mess. I mean, do you think it's possible there will never be a casino in southeastern Massachusetts because it's such a messy situation down there?
I personally believe that the Wampanoag tribe will ultimately get a casino in Taunton. I think it's a matter of time. It could be a long time, depending on what happens with court cases that are out there, allowing them to take their land into trust. The interesting thing is how the gaming industry and the capital markets look at that fourth license. So are they willing to get involved with developers in the southeastern zone based on the fact that there could be a tribal casino in Taunton? And by the way, if there is a southeastern zone commercial casino, the tribal casino pays zero in taxes.
Right.
So you could technically be competing against a facility or an operation that pays no tax, which would be very difficult. And I think some of the wobbling you see in that territory. There was a deadline last Friday where 3 bidders actually asked for an extension because the capital, could they secure their capital and could they secure their gaming partner? And it's difficult. Now, with that said, there are some people who are looking at that market who are very capable of building and operating a very nice casino in that part of the world.
Now, if we just put aside the idea of a commercial one for the reasons you said, if a tribal casino came to Taunton, that is a worrying spot for you folks, right?
That is a troubling location for us. As I mentioned earlier, we went out and commissioned a study in terms of what the impacts of Massachusetts casinos would be, and I told you that the Plain Ridge facility now, it looks like about 12%. All in, Taunton, Plain Ridge, Boston, MGM, the projection was about 35%. Now, those are going to come staggered. So Plain Ridge is coming in June. Boston, Everett, Wynn will come sometime in 18 or 19, depending on what happens with the legal cases there. The MGM casino in Springfield, there's not as much impact for us. And then the question is what happens in Taunton and how long it takes.
Talking about even a 12% now revenue drop coming in the next year that you're planning for, the question comes up, what about jobs? I mean, does that mean you'll probably have to reduce employment at Twin River, to manage that decline?
Obviously, we're going to try to do better than 12%. And I think some of the tools that we have in our toolbox and some of those that we're contemplating in the future will help us from a jobs perspective. I mean, today we have 1,600 people with licenses to work at Twin River, or about 1,100 FTEs, significantly higher than when before we got table games, and those numbers are significantly higher than we projected with table games. And obviously we want to do everything we can to stay competitive and protect as many of those jobs as possible.
So you purchased, I mentioned before the break, the Hard Rock Casino in Biloxi, Mississippi in 2013, pretty far from Lincoln, down in
Yes.
Mississippi. That was partly to diversify your portfolio geographically. How has that, it's been a little over a year now, how's that acquisition gone?
We actually closed in July. It was announced just over a year ago now. We closed in July. We are up on revenue. We're up in profitability, and we're up in market share since we've taken over. We had the team put together a plan, and they've been executing to that plan, which was a very aggressive plan, and we're exceeding our own expectations. But not only is it important from what we're doing there, but it's important in terms of what it brings to us back at Twin Rivers. So we've actually, a couple of our colleagues from Mississippi have come to join us in Rhode Island. So they had a really strong IT director down there who we've brought back to Twin River to make our corporate CTO. And we're always looking for opportunities in terms of where we can get synergy. So insurances, we're getting better deal, purchasing everything that we have to buy in both places, as well as our property in Colorado, much better rates with volume. So there's a lot of benefit to this, and we're not done. I mean, we continue to look for other opportunities. We don't talk about them until we're ready to, but we're continually kind of looking to see if there's anything else that could get added to this portfolio of assets that is additive.
So you say you're actively doing that all the time?
We have been actively doing it, and we won't. We don't react to speculation about what or where or how or when. But when we're ready to announce, we announce.
You mentioned Colorado, and again, to be the negative one, you pushed a referendum there to expand gambling at horse tracks in Colorado. Twin River invested a lot of money in that campaign. Went down in flames, 70% voting no. How disappointed were you, and what does that mean for the future of that locale?
It was just, well, first of all, let me talk about the future of that location. I mean, we have an existing business that was existing and profitable before, and it's going to exist and be profitable, going forward. So it's not a question, and it never was a question of we need expanded forms of gaming or we're going out of business. It was never that. What we saw was a need. There is a tremendous need to fund K through 12 education in Colorado. There had been a referendum question the year before, asking the voters to
about 20 seconds left, so.
Raise taxes.
It's too late, they voted. So.
and we thought that tying expanded forms of gaming to raising education funds would work, and ultimately
the voters went the other way.
Yep.
All right, just briefly, John, before we go, will Twin River still be open 5 years from now?
Without question.
Without question. All right. So no doubt in John Taylor's mind, Twin River will be open, and a lot going on there to keep things healthy as they face new competition in Massachusetts. John, thanks so much for being with me. Thank you for being with us here today, and be sure to tune in again next week when our guest will be the new CEO of FM Global, the big insurer, Tom Lawson. He'll be with us to talk about what's going on at FM Global as he takes over leadership there. Remember, you can catch every episode of Executive Suite on WPRI.com, including John Taylor's greatest hits, since you're here every few months or so. It seems you got something to announce. So be sure to check those out as well. We'll see you back here next week on Executive Suite. Great.